Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you all had an easy fast and didn't degrade yourselves too much. And I hope you applied the organic beauty of Judaism, because it is a changing, growing system, and that you afflicted yourself with what you view as affliction in this modern, perhaps progressive 21st century, in whatever fashion you found to be affliction. Friends, there are 54 Torah portions in a year, every year, and this week we are doing number 54. V'zot haberacha, and this is the blessing. For those who've stayed with me all year, and you know who you are, thank you, and thank you. You've been a blessing to me, and I hope you have enjoyed yourself. Congratulations in sticking this out. You've chosen to walk the path less traveled. Took an untrodden path once where the swift don't win the race. Goes to the worthy who can divide the word of truth. Friends, those who have listened or watched and learned from our weekly sessions have taken a different path. You have heard things you may not normally hear. You have thought things you may not normally think. And you have learned things you may not normally learn. Many who live their lives and view themselves as spiritual, if not religious beings, and even those who pray every day, often live on an enclosed, dogmatic, and categorized version of prayer and practice. But here in our community, you learn to understand the reason for things and to appreciate the what and why in ritual, and to make it yours. Yes, we may go to synagogue when it is dutifully expected, which it was during the days of awe. We may even rise when we should rise and sit when we should sit. Some of us can read and sing along with the rabbis and cantors and shout out Amen in all the right places. We've all sat and seen those who may even prattle through the prayers with envious ease. But friends, are we sacrificing the living spirit of what we are there for the appearance of practice? Quite frankly, very few Jewish practices have proved harder for us as a people than knowing how to pray. How many of you have stood at the gates of prayer, unsure of what to do or to say, unable to enter, unsure of who to ask? I don't know about you, but I find Hebrews difficult. And you all know my feeling of translation. Most just don't read that well. And there isn't usually someone explaining what we are doing or why. We all seek spirit in our lives and experiences of God. And friends, we are told that experiences of God are not actually that hard to come by. All it takes is yearning, searching, welcoming God within. We were told in Exodus 25:8, Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betokam, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. We've talked about this, and we will talk about it some more. Friends, this week we are in the Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days, and there are two periods of Chol HaMoed, one for Passover, one for Sukkot. And we are in the intermediate days of Sukkot, and we will talk about them shortly, and we will talk about the sanctuary from the verse I just quoted. I'm sure most of you know Chabad. They're everywhere, and you recognize their members by their black clothes, beards, and hats. And Chabad has as its main philosophical work a book known as the Tanya, which is made up of 5 different parts and has been called by 3 different names. The Likutei Amarim, which are the collected discourses, or the Tanya, from the first word, dealing with the mystic descent of the soul, and the Sefer Shel Bononim, Book of Intermediates, which is the third of the 3 books we talked about during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The first was for the good, the Tzaddik, the righteous man. The second was for the Rasha, the wicked man. And the third, the one we're all in, and the one we were hoping to be sealed in for the year, the Book of the Intermediates, the Benoni. And friends, the Tanya, as it is called, has gone through many, many, many revisions. But one of the things it says is, God has to remain b'che'elem v'chester, or God has to remain concealed and in hiding. And as a quick aside, you may have noticed that the verb for hiding is chester, from which we get the name Esther, the queen whose background was hidden, which gave rise to Purim. But that, as they say, is another story. And those who stayed with me for the year heard me talk about the diminishing role God played in the Tanakh. And the reason for this, that the Tanya says, is because this is the only way that we can have freedom of choice. Friends, the Torah is based on our ability to celebrate freedom, and one of the things I pointed out in earlier parshas, and will point out again, is how important both our individual freedom and choice is, as well as our collective freedom and choice. We even saw it in spiritual worship when the patriarchs would refer to their God and the God of their father, and which pointed out something very important which the Baal Shem Tov referred to. He said there was an order. First, my God, then the God of my father. Friends, make your spiritual practice yours, and then you can make it the practice of your father. Many who pray or try to do so by rote. Instead, let us give that word the highest kavanah, the highest intention. Make it for you. Never feel out of place or alone. Any question you may have is only an email away. Friends, you have taken a road less traveled. Life is about the journey. Love it. Live it. We've reached the real end of the 5 books of Moses, and the Torah ends with Moses' blessing and his death. And his blessing is a blessing to the tribes and serves as a parallel to Jacob's blessing of his sons in Genesis 49. And his final words to the people are, "Happy are you, Israel," a people saved by God. Remember, friends, Israel isn't a place. It's a name, and here it is a people. It was the name given to Jacob after his dream of the ladder going to heaven when he awoke and wrestled with a divine being through the night. And it means wrestles with God, something each and every one of us has done during our lifetimes. And so remember, Moses' final words are to all of us. The people who wrestle with God are the people saved by God. He ascends Mount Nebo, and God points out the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so the Torah concludes not as a history, but as a prelude, a promise of the future. The future is still to be told. The legacy to the patriarchs is now beginning. And we continue to write that history every day. The death of Moses is anticlimactic. He dies, God buries him, and no one knows his burial place to this day. And so his tomb cannot be venerated. Now it's time to say good night, good night. Sleep tight, now the sun turns out his light. Good night, sleep tight. Moses occupied a unique place in the Bible. He lived his life in a sacred space between God and man. When he spoke to God, he represented the people, and when he spoke to the people, he represented God. And just for fun, as the Torah began in controversy, it ends in controversy and confusion. And with a strong hand and all the great fear that Moses did before the eyes of Israel. And for the first time, the fear and strong hand are ascribed to Moses, who kept saying it was never him but God. And now we are left to wonder, what was of God and what was of Moses? The patriarchs were the story of individuals within a family, each of whom God had his own private relationship with. And we saw how God went from engaging with a single individual to engaging through a single individual, Moses, as he gathered the people together. And friends, right now we are in the midst of one of the 3 holidays which God sanctifies in the Bible that calls for the people to gather. It's when Jews the world over retreat to the little huts they attach to their homes, made from wood and reeds. Although I saw one the other night made of canvas with a sign on it telling me it was kosher. And it's where the people eat and where some will actually sleep, and where many wonder why they are doing this and what it represents. These huts are also known as booths, and their origin is fascinating, simply fascinating. And we're given a clue about them in the Torah reading for this holiday. And every major holiday has a particular reading assigned to it. And for Sukkot, it is Exodus 33:12, where Moses asks God how he will lead the people to the promised land. And God tells Moses he will travel with them. And Moses says, "Show me your glory." The man who hid his face at the sight of the burning bush out of the fear of looking upon God now tells God to show himself to him. And God tells him his good will pass in front of them, and he says, "I shall show grace to whomever I show grace, and I shall show mercy to whomever I shall show mercy. And you won't be able to see my face because a human will not see me and live." I and I in creation, where one's nature neither honors nor forgives. I and I, one say to the other, "No man sees my face and lives." And God says, "And you shall make a festival of weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest." And friends, this is that festival. And our sages determined we should erect these booths for this festival, because more than anything, these booths represent the covering or cloud that protected the people and preceded the march, and was the vehicle of God and of wisdom. The holiday is Sukkot, and it ends with Simchat Torah, the celebration of the teaching, marked first and foremost by the members of your synagogue dancing around the shul with the Torah. And when we read the very end and very beginning of it, to show that it is circular, a tree of life that never ends, like God, that which has no beginning, no ending, and no point of weakness. The Sukkot has been considered a covering, a cloud, a hut from the edge of fields where the workers stayed, allowing them to maximize their harvesting time, the temporary shelters used in the wandering years in the desert, and probably some other really great things. Friends, this is the sanctuary God was referring to, which I mentioned earlier. It is where he will dwell among us. Almost all religions and spiritual systems believe in a grace that comes from on high. Divine grace, or God's grace, has been seen as a divine influence which exists in humans and brings about regeneration and sanctification. It inspires virtue, imparts strength, and allows us to endure trials and tribulations. You will find it in Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. But this covering, this sukkah, may be the origin of that for the Western world. God shows grace, and he does so via his cloud, and the booths or sukkots or holy ark covering, they are all from the same word. This cloud of grace welcomes us every year. And so for an 8-day period, we too can be completely enmeshed in the grace of God and be honoring that grace by this practice. Now, a beautiful friend of mine calls this the shaking stick holiday because we use the opportunity to shake this stick every day for 7 days in different directions. Leviticus 23 tells us to gather the 4 species: the palm, the willow, the myrtle, which form the lulav, and the etrog, the citron fruit that looks like a lemon, and to wave them while saying a prayer to God. We stand facing east, and we wave them to the east, to the right, south, behind you over your shoulder to the west, to the left, north, raising it above you and lowering it down below you with a drawing in motion. Cast it out and draw it in 3 times in each direction. Now, I don't fish, but I wonder if it's like the motion of casting a fishing rod. I'll have to check with my good friend Malcolm on that, but that's what it reminds me of. And friends, by going in all directions, you are completely enveloping yourself in the grace of God. The wicked know no peace, and you just can't fake it. Wherever I am, welcome is where I'll be. As I look around this world, all that I'm finding is the saving grace that's over me. Friends, enjoy your time in God's grace. It exists all around you all the time. But for this one brief moment in time, you can be aware of what you're enveloped in. And so remember, the next time someone invites you to share a meal in a sukkah, jump at the chance, because you will be surrounding yourself with the grace of God. Friends, we're used to studying the Torah in small weekly sections, these 54 different parshas. And when our rabbis and spiritual leaders sermonize, it's from only a part of that part, and so we may lose sight of the whole. I have tried to give you more than a part of a part, but there is so much. And because of its organic nature, it evolves and changes and impacts in new and different and exciting ways all the time. If you read Rashi's comments, you notice he never lost sight of the whole while commenting on its parts. He taught us to read and to question. And so, my friends, I'm not here to parrot him, but to carry on from him and question and learn more. And I invite you to continue this journey. The Tanakh, an acronym for the Torah, which is the teachings, the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which is the writings. Tanakh is a whole made up of parts. And in beginning again, we remind ourselves that we don't just pick a section and comment. There is an order to things. By his truth I can be upright. By his strength I do endure. By his power I've been lifted. In his love I am secure. You can never have enough love. You can never give enough love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining me this year in our exploration. And for those who want to do it again, we will begin again next week. Bless you all, my friends. Be well, be happy, be healthy, be free. And remember, first your God, then your Father's God. There is an order to things. And remember, friends, if you do want me to start again in the beginning, please send me an email and let me know how you feel. If I had some more time to spend, then I guess I'd be with you, my friend. Shabbat Shalom.